Frydenberg. He joins us from Canberra. Treasurer, good morning to you.
Nice to be with you, Michael.
The West Australian this morning is reporting you have received federal police protection around the clock because of threats you received during this pandemic. Can you tell us any more about that?
Oh, no, I can't. They're obviously the matters that the federal police handle, and I'll leave any comments to them and the Minister for Home Affairs, but, they make their assessments and I behave accordingly.
Are you unsettled by these threats?
No, I'm getting about my daily job, and yesterday I made a speech to the National Press Club about the importance of getting people back into jobs and back into work, and the $4 billion price tag from the restrictions, that is the loss of economic activity each week as these restrictions stay in place, and the importance of having them lifted in accordance with the medical advice.
Based on your speech and based on the Prime Minister's media conference yesterday, is it fair to say that you, the government, would like large parts of the Australian economy to be back in action by the start of July?
Well, absolutely, in accordance with the medical advice, of course, because that has been one of the real success stories for Australia in recent months. The fact is, we saw just a few weeks ago the number of coronavirus cases here in Australia increased by more than 20% per day. That is now well below 1%. And as a result of flattening the curve, we should be able to ease those restrictions. And they're the discussions that the National Cabinet had yesterday, and they'll have again on Friday. And I think the lesson from history, particularly the early 1990s in Australia, when we saw a massive spike in unemployment, is that the quicker you can get people back into jobs and off those unemployment queues, the better off the economy will be and the better off those individuals will be.
OK, some sectors, though, will take a bit more time. We speak, of course, about hospitality, about accommodation, about tourism. Certainly, what extra help will you provide those sectors?
Well, again, that's where the medical experts are looking at ways that you can bring back those sectors with the appropriate social distancing or other requirements in place. Sectors like construction, agriculture, mining have been able to continue throughout this crisis while also accommodating those social distancing requirements. It's a bit more difficult, as you say, in hospitality or in retail, but what we're looking to do is to give confidence to the employers that they can get back into business, because obviously they have to eat up what is left of their working capital in order to reopen and to restock their cafe or their restaurant, but at the same time give consumers the confidence that they can go and shop freely or eat freely at the restaurants and at the cafes, and know that the proper protocols and processes are in place when it comes to the medical requirements.
Domestic travel, could we, as the Prime Minister hinted, be able to travel interstate and possibly to New Zealand by the start of the school holidays in July?
Well, domestic travel is important not just for the tourism market but also for the freight task, and as you know, we've been providing some additional government support to the airlines to ensure that we're able to move goods and services around the country as required. But at the same time, we've got to continue to follow the medical advice, and I think the domestic airline arrangements, the domestic travel arrangements will lift well before the international ones do.
OK. Now, you confirmed yesterday that the temporary increase to the job seeker payment, the old New Start, will be wound back as scheduled in September. Are you comfortable with the jobless then going back to receiving only $40 a day? Well,
again, we've been very consistent in our position in relation to all payments and our programs in the context of COVID-19, namely that they're temporary, that they're targeted, that they're proportionate to the challenge, but they're also using existing tax and transfer systems.
You've been consistent with your message, and I understand that, but it's more of a philosophical question I'm asking you, Treasurer. Does it sit well with your conscience for job seekers, and there'll be 7% unemployed, according to the RBA, by the end of next year, to go back to receiving only $40 a day?
Well, Michael, our goal is actually to get those people off unemployment benefits and into a job. And the best way we can do that is to generate economic activity, and the best way we can do that is to lift those restrictions.
But you know, a lot of people will still be on the jobless queues after the last recession. We saw people in their 50s never entering the workforce again because they simply could not get a job. I'll ask you again, just in terms of your conscience, are you happy for people to go back to receiving only $40 a day?
Well, I want people to get into a job, and I'm very proud of the fact that we've been able, since coming to government, to create 1.5 million new jobs, and that before this crisis, we saw the unemployment rate fall to 5.1% in February, bearing in mind it was 5.7% when we came to government. We saw the participation rate around record highs, and we saw employment growth at around double the OECD average. So that's been our proven track record, Michael, of getting people into jobs. We'll have to climb that mountain again on the other side of the coronavirus crisis, but that is also why we're focused on the skills task and helping to equip people with the necessary skills, whether they're entering the workforce for the first time or whether they're reskilling from their current job to maintain their employment. They're the sort of issues that we're focused on, and that's the work that we've commissioned through the Joyce Review.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, thanks for joining us on News Breakfast.
Good to be with you.